Hey there, and welcome back to episode number 2. And today we're going to hit on something that we all have in common, and that is stories and lives that we thought we were going to live when we were growing up, and somehow things just changed. Well, today I am going to help you find your midlife magic. And I'm also going to help you understand that there is a dusty treasure chest that is locked away in your mind that we need to pull out and clean up. So I start with a story, and it is from my prior company. I was so excited to be invited to the White House, and it was going to be a cyber safety conference. And keeping kids safe online was my passion. The company that I was a part of was all about keeping kids safe, and so this was just something that to me was I couldn't even believe it, because not only was I going to get to go back and be a part of a group of people under the CIO of the White House, but I was also going to be not introduced, but in a small group with the president, President Obama, and the First Lady. And so this was just so darn exciting. I couldn't even stand it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest thing. So I get all packed up. I get ready to go. I get there. It's absolutely pouring rain. I have just enough time to put my stuff with the bellman at the hotel, and I race over to stand in line. And I finally get in, and I think that there was probably about 30 of us that were invited to this. And we get in and we get badges, and we get a short tour around. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. We're seeing rooms that aren't on the regular tour. And then we get into that room, and there are photographers, and we're all seated in like a 10 rows, and we're just waiting for the president and the first lady to walk in. And then they do, and you can just feel the energy. When somebody has come into a room that is truly powerful, inspiring, that is iconic to strength. And by the way, I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about the first lady. Michelle rocked it. She after the president spoke, she started talking about her passion and conviction for keeping kids safe online, and I was in my element. I just thought it was the greatest thing. And then we went into our, individual rooms with probably about, I think there were like 6 of us, and we got to talk to the CIO, and we worked out models and put things on the whiteboard. And really, it was technology, but it was advancement. It was helping, kids. It was doing something impactful. Okay. So, when I was growing up, my dad has always said that I'm a magic maker. And in that moment, I felt like I was making magic. I was just taking it all in. And I left that day and went back to the hotel and went up to my room. And then it hit me. I did not have anyone to share this excitement that I was going through, this feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what just happened. And so, what does any single girl after divorce do when she starts to feel sorry for herself? You call your mom. And so I did. And I told my mom everything that had taken place. And at the end, I said, I just wish I had somebody that I could really share this experience with, that I could, call up and share. And my mom's like, well, what about me? What am I doing? And I said, it's not that. It's the other, that connection with the person that you're with, that you're, your relationship and all that. And she said, Hillary, first off, actually, she said, you need to go on a run and you need to go around the National Mall and look at the 12 monuments, these architectural, like beautiful, buildings and monuments and things. And you need to absorb that. And I'm like, okay, I think you're right. Because, it was one of these like, oh my gosh, I'm here. I'm going to be leaving the next morning. I need to do more. But then she said this. She said, and as you're out running, do your little thing that you do with your eyes. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But also think about today. And as you think about the highlights, put them into a bottle. Bottle them up, she said, so that in the future, you can pull out these incredible memories, these incredible stories, and share them with others. Share them with, the man that's in your life, or share them with people that you're going to be meeting. But bottle them up because you don't want to lose them. You don't want them to evaporate into thin air. And as I thought about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And then and then my mind went to, well, where am I going to put them? Besides being in the bottle, they're going to get, there's so many bottles that I have. So many, so many of these they're going to get all like messed up. And so then it came to me to put them in a treasure chest. This treasure chest that could hold all of these, incredible things that I think are incredible. Things that have happened in my life that I don't want to forget and that I do want to share. At some point, I knew that I would have somebody come into my life that I'd want to share all about my day at the White House. So, going back to putting on my running shoes, I get outside, and since I was a little girl, I absolutely loved Bewitched. The show, The Witch, and she did this little thing with her nose. Well, I could never do that little twitch with my nose. But when I wanted to remember something, I would take a picture of it by closing my eyes. And for those that are watching me on video right now, you can see I would do this. I would shut my eyes really like boom, powerfully, like with intention that I am taking a picture that is burned into my memory. And I'm like, and then it was always there and I would remember it. So what I did is that I literally went on that run and I did the loop and I went and I saw each and every one of the 12 of these monuments. And I did my eyes, I clicked, I shut them very tightly. I then had this little image of them going into the bottle. And some of you might be thinking, like, is this I Dream a Genie? No, this is not. This is like a bottle. Think of it like a bottle of like a perfume bottle from the olden days. And then I put them in this treasure chest. And from that point forward, when I had cool things happen, when I had things I wanted to remember for sure, I would put them into that treasure chest. So why is this so important? Why is this act of bottling things up, of keeping them for later important? Because we are going to have another setback. There is going to be another fork in the road. We may not make the right decision during that fork. We may go right and we're supposed to go left. And this way, we have incredible things that when we're not as good as we want to be, or we're not as happy as we want to be, or we're feeling sorry for ourselves, we can go back and start thinking about the things that are happening in our life, in those bottles, in that treasure chest. And by pulling them out, all of a sudden, you're like, yeah, it makes you feel happier. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel like, you know what? I've done some really cool things. And I put in those bottles, it's not just the big ones. I put in the small experiences. I put in the experience when I am sitting at a table and I look outside, and in the concrete, there is a flower growing out of the concrete. Made no sense at all. There was no other green anywhere. And there it was in full bloom. I literally did my funky little eye thing, did my thing, and then I bottled it up and I put it in there. And what I realized was, and this is the key, I thought that day when I started to bottle these things up that I was doing it for the guy that I was going to meet in the future. And yes, I did share many of the things I bottled up with Eric. But you know what? It was far more important that I was sharing those with myself, that I was acknowledging not just the small, the big, the mid-size, these happier times, these moments that impressed me, wowed me, that I wanted to make sure that I never forgot. And when you think about your life and wherever you are right now, are there moments that you right now, and whether it would help you to take out a piece of paper and start writing down what's going to go in your treasure chest, what's going to go in your bottles, what in your life has been really something that defines you? And for some, it's going to be like you're going to pull out the paper and there's going to be, many of these moments. For others, you may have to think a while. And remember, it's not about how big, it's about the significance of it. And going back to the magic maker, after I left, there were definitely, times. It was when I first went to the White House, that was pretty close to when I had been separated. And I did not feel like I couldn't be a magic maker if my life depended on it. But what happened is, you get beaten down, you lose that perspective, the thoughts of when you were a kid where you could do anything. You could be anyone. Well, when you start to look at some of the positives, some of the things that have made you happy, one, it helps you get out of that funk. It helps you get out of that state, that lower state. And as you start to think about not just one, but two, but three, but four, five, six, then all of a sudden you realize that your emotional state has changed. Your emotional state is actually elevating the energy that you feel when you're thinking about all these really amazing, fun times that you've had in your life. The times when you were a kid, you were a teenager, you were in college, you were, in your first job, you were whatever the story is. This is where you need to start. This is the beginning of saying, I am who I am because of all of the things that have made up how I've gotten here. Those steps that I took, the ones that were presented to me that I least expected, the ones that I worked hard for, the ones that I didn't work hard for, that just came, those bluebirds, those ones that come out of, right, left field. And so as I now am sitting here and I realize that, I mentioned in episode 1 about the different relaunches that I've had. And I mentioned that, quite a few of those came in a 7-month period. Well, we all know if I really go through all of the relaunches, and I was out on a walk today in San Francisco. We walked literally from one bridge to the other bridge. So from the Bay Bridge to the Golden Gate Bridge. And as I was walking, I was thinking about, you know what? I've been through so many of these challenges, but through each, there's been something I've added to the bottle. There's been something I've added to that treasure chest. And when I have, gotten to the point where I feel like, gosh, I now can look back on certain events and I have more of these, like, these perfume bottle sprays. I'm spritzing myself with all these, that it's the beginning of understanding the silver lining. So grab your pencil, grab your pen, grab your paper, your journal, or just your mind, and sit in this concept of bottling things up. Sit in the concept that you, no matter what age you are, but especially if you are sitting there right now in what we call midlife minefields, and there is stuff blowing up all around you, take note of the small things that potentially are those inspirational, motivational little items that could be bottled up that you could bring out again. And that will take you to this magic maker that you once were, that you still are within. And remember, when I said that whole thing about, I thought I was doing it for somebody else, no way. I was doing it for me. So please really put together your treasure chest and share it. Share it with someone. Share it with yourself. And you too will become that magic maker again.